act, they express themselves, they speak, they eat, they sleep. It's just the way they do things, and that's their nature. So the perverted human nature that one develops by association with the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. So there's human nature, and there's material nature, and there's the spiritual nature. Right? And again, it refers to the way people think, feel, act, eat, sleep, hate, defend, all the way they do things. That's called the nature. So in the mode, one acquires the perverted human nature by association with the modes of material nature, meaning goodness, passion, ignorance. By the influence of these modes, especially passion and ignorance, one develops the lower swabhava, or asat swabhava, by which one is held a prisoner of misconception and the laws of nature, meaning karma, and including time and so forth. So mundane passion and ignorance are especially inauspicious. Now, what is the mode of passion? It's described in Bhagavad Gita. Lobha pavrtir aramba karmanam asama spriha rajas sitani jayante vividhe bharatar sabha. This is 14th chapter, 12th verse. When there's an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, fruit of activity, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire and hankering develop. And the more elaborate definition is, the mode of passion is characterized by unending and insatiable cascade of material desires for success in business and ever-increasing riches, sensuality, and other forms of hedonistic self-indulgence, fame, mundane knowledge, health and useful appearance, and power for dominance in every field of action. And all the above are accompanied by strong attachment to mundane family life, the strong desire to have an extended family dynasty, and innumerable assets such as expensive properties and possessions. If such passionate material desires are frustrated, one becomes angry, resentful, and bedeviled by greed. That's something I wrote. Okay, and you'll get the notes. But this is sort of like a summary of purports by Prabhupada to a series of verses in the 14th chapter that explain the mode of passion. Right? So that's a summary of the mode of passion. And yeah, the mode of passion is characterized by unending and insatiable cascade of material desires for success in business and ever-increasing riches, sensuality, and other forms of hedonistic self-indulgence, fame, mundane knowledge, health and youthful appearance, and power for dominance in every field of action. All the above are often accompanied by strong attachment to mundane family life, the strong desire to have an extended family dynasty, and innumerable assets such as expensive properties and possessions. If such passionate material desires are frustrated, one becomes angry, resentful, and bedeviled by greed. Okay. Now, the mode of ignorance is defined in 14th chapter, 13th verse. Aprakaso pravritischa pramado moha evacha tamasyetani jayante vividhe kurunandana. When there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, O Arjuna, darkness, inertia, madness, and illusion are manifested. Darkness, inertia means non-activity, being lazy. Madness and illusion. And when there's an increase in the mode of ignorance, those influenced by the mode of ignorance lack the intelligence to make right decisions. They act under the spell of illusion and misconceptions, by which they work in ways that violate the principles of spirituality, meaning mercy, cleanliness, truthfulness, and austerity. Bewildered by ignorance, they accept bogus religions as the truth and reject actual religions as false. They consider a fallen person as a great soul and ignore a genuine saint. They pass most of their time in sleep, laziness, illusory pursuits, and distress, with little or no happiness, and remain blind to self-realization. Such ignorant persons are materialistic, deceptive, expert at insulting others, and maintain a negative, resentful attitude, and they are habituated to fault-finding. Their knowledge is limited to the body, concerned with eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, without any faith in the Holy Scriptures and saintly authorities. A person in the mode of goodness lacks inspiration to take up positive initiatives. Such a person is bereft of the ability. Prabhu, can you put this on the board? Such a person is bereft of the ability to make use of whatever knowledge they have. This is due to not having the discipline to work by adhering to regulative principles of daily lifestyle. They are prone to acting whimsically with no real purpose. Though one may have the capacity to work, he remains idle due to the tendency to be lazy and slovenly. Slovenly means unclean. Time goes by and nothing of consequence gets done. These symptoms are typical of the mode of ignorance. The great Vaishnava saint and guru, Yamunacharya, has composed a verse that states, those influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance cannot understand Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is a verse from his book called the Shrotra Ratna. And he says, my dear Lord, devotees like Vyasadeva and Narada know you to be the personality of Godhead. Yeah. Okay, there is attachment. What is that? What? No, I'm reading from Swabhava. Yeah, I'm going over what we discussed last week, and then we're going to go into the part that I didn't discuss. That's something else. That's later on. So there's what's called attachment. That's called raga, and then there is detachment. Right. That's called detachment in Sanskrit. It's called. They are. Huh? What? Yeah, vairagya. Detached. But the devotee is neither attached, raga, or detached, vairagya. The devotee is dedicated. Right, dedicated to pleasing Krishna. some Siddhir Haritoshanam in Sanskrit. Their goal is Haritoshanam, pleasing Lord Hari, and that's the perfection of human life. Right? So, if you use passion to please Krishna, then that is different than passion to please yourself. It may look similar, and there's activity, there's achievement, but the whole result is given to Krishna. Whereas when it's the mode of passion, material passion, it's all about pleasing oneself. Or if one tries to please others, it's all about getting the fame for oneself for doing that. Right? So it's like the difference between gold and iron. There's a huge difference between gold and iron. Right? So there's a huge difference between material passion and the passion to please the Lord. It's not the same. As gold is not the same as iron. No. Okay, so Yamunacharya says, my dear Lord, devotees like Vyasa and Narada know you to be the personality of Godhead. By understanding different Vedic literatures, one can come to know your characteristics, your form, and your activities, and one can thus understand that you are the supreme personality of Godhead. So notice he says form, activities. So we're studying the form of Krishna and his activities, or the form of Lord Ramachandra and his activities, or the form of Narayana and his activities, right? But those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance, the demons, the non-devotees, cannot understand you. They are unable to understand you. However expert such non-devotees may be in discussing Vedanta and the Upanishads and other Vedic literatures, it is not possible for them to understand the personality of Godhead. This is the Shota Ratna, written by the great Sri Vaishnava saint, Yamunacharya, verse number 12. It's also quoted by Prabhupada in 7th chapter, 24th verse of Bhagavad Gita. So here we have a top authority amongst the Sri Vaishnavas. He's speaking to Krishna. Right? Just like Vyasadeva is speaking about Krishna. Narada Muni is always speaking about Krishna. So he's speaking about Krishna. And he says it's impossible for people influenced by the modes of ignorance and passion, rajas and tamas, to understand Krishna. It's impossible. Even if they're expert in reading the Upanishads and the Vedanta Sutra, even if they're expert at that, still they don't understand because of the influence of the mode of passion and ignorance. So he's a top authority. We should believe what he says. One can develop the higher swabhava, sat swabhava, by associating with persons in the mode of goodness. Such persons live a regulated life based on spiritual principles. I thought we were going to put it on the board. Such persons live a regulated life based on spiritual principles of mercy, cleanliness, truthfulness, and austerity. The following are descriptions of the qualities of the mode of goodness in knowledge, duty, work, understanding, determination, and happiness. Verse 1 is 18th chapter, verse number 20. That knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all living entities, though they are divided into innumerable forms, you should understand to be in the mode of goodness. So, let's take a look at that. 18th chapter, verse number 20. This is what we're going to discuss today, the mode of goodness, and then a few other subjects. So, you want to get the Bhagavad Gita and give it to everyone? It's 18th chapter, verse 20. Sarvabhuteshu yenaikam bhavam avyayam ikshate avibhaktam vibhaktesu tajjnanam vidhisatvikam. That knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all living entities, though they are divided into innumerable forms, you should understand to be in the mode of goodness. What does this mean? It's very easy to misinterpret this verse. So we'll carefully read the purport and then we'll talk about it. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This is 18th chapter, verse number 20. And also, sir, don't put the Bhagavad Gita on the ground. Keep it on your left, yes. A person who sees one spirit soul in every living being, whether a demigod, human being, animal, bird, beast, aquatic, or plant, possesses knowledge in the mode of goodness. Now, what does this mean, one spirit soul? That means that they do not see only a body. They see the soul animating the body with consciousness. That's what it means. It doesn't mean that there's only one soul, like the Mayavadis say. There's only Brahman, there's nothing else. No, there are individual souls, but a person in mode of goodness does not say the person is the body. They know that the person is actually the soul. And this is also very emphatically said in Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, 17th verse, which says, Avinasi tatadviti, yena sarvam idam tatam, swam vinasam abhyayasyasya nakaschit kartum arhati. 2nd chapter, 17th verse. Krishna says to Arjuna, that which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. So the materialists, they don't see like this. The materialists see bodies. This body is white. This body is black. This body is this. This body is that. They don't see the soul animating the body with consciousness. And if you look in the 2nd chapter, 25th verse, it says, in the purport, in other words, the soul is inconceivable by human experimental knowledge. The soul is consciousness and conscious. That also is the statement of the Vedas, and we have to accept that. Unlike the bodily changes, there's no change in the soul. As eternally unchangeable, the soul remains atomic or in comparison to the infinite Supreme Soul. The Supreme Soul is infinite, meaning we're talking about Paramatma now, and the atomic soul is infinitesimal. Therefore, the infinitesimal soul, being unchangeable, can never become equal to the infinite soul or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This concept is repeated in the Vedas in different ways, just to confirm the stability of the conception of the soul. Repetition of something is necessary in order that we understand the matter thoroughly without error. So this was in the purport to 2nd chapter, 25th verse. And in the purport to 2nd chapter, 26th verse, Srila Prabhupada writes, materialistic philosophers maintain that life symptoms take place at a certain mature condition of material combination. The modern material scientists and materialist philosophers also think similarly. According to them, the body is a combination of physical elements, and at a certain stage, the life symptoms develop by interaction of the physical and chemical elements. This is an exact, short, clear definition of the materialistic point of view of the modern scientists and philosophers. And it's totally wrong. And that proves that the scientists and philosophers are overwhelmed by the modes of raga and tamas, rajas and tamas. Whereas someone in the mode of goodness sees that there is a unique soul in everybody. That can be in a tomato, in a tree, in a cockroach, in a snake, in a human being, in a devata, a demigod. He does not think that a person is only a body. He knows that the body is a temporary covering of the soul due to people having revolted against God. So therefore, they're put in a body that has senses and a mind, and they're given a choice. Use your senses and mind for sense gratification and self-indulgence in the material world, or use your senses and mind for self-realization so you can go back to the spiritual world. Yeah. Yes. It's called free will. Just like you have chosen to come here. How many other people chose to come here this morning at 7:30? Well, not many. Only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. That's it. How many people are in the congregation? Hundreds, right? Thousands, if you count the greater congregation that we have, right? So that's a personal choice that you made. That's why there's differences between people. It depends on the choices that they make. And you have limited free will. Krishna gives you limited free will. You can either come to the class or you can stay home, watch television, sleep, eat, talk nonsense, chant, whatever you want to do. That's what makes differences between people. The choices that they make. No, you're talking about the soul. But the soul that's infected with a false ego, you understand, makes decisions based on sense gratification, not based on pleasing Krishna. Samsiddhim haritoshanam. The highest perfection of human life is pleasing Lord Hari. How do you please Lord Hari, or how do you please Krishna? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. Hearing and repeating Krishna Katha. Remembering Krishna Katha, or Krishna. Serving the lotus feet of the Lord. Padasevanam. Archanam, worshipping the Lord. Vandanam, praying to the Lord. Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, becoming the friend of the Lord. Sakyam, becoming the servant of the Lord. Sakyam, becoming the friend of the Lord. Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam, surrendering everything to the Lord. This is the way you please the Lord. So if people do Shravanam, Kirtanam, politics, Smaranam, remembering nonsense, like they have contests in America, nonsense contests. It's called trivia contests. You have to know all kinds of nonsensical things to win that contest, right? Who was the 22nd president of the United States? Who did this? Who did that? What's the capital of this country? What's the capital of that country? What was the batting average of Babe Ruth in 1933? You have to know all these facts to win that contest. You see? So that means you have to fill your mind with total nonsense that has no relationship at all to Krishna. But to go back to Godhead, you have to fill your mind with total good sense, all knowledge of Krishna, right? And Ramayana and Lakshmi Narayana and so forth. You have to have the Sahasranam Sotram in your mind, and Narayana Sutram, and this and that. It all has to be in your mind, and at any moment you can just blurt it out because it's your nature. It's sattvic nature. But yet, the materialists, they can splurt out at any time a whole litany of nonsense, nonsensical facts. They have no relationship at all to Krishna. They memorize it. You see? This is what makes a difference. Now, are the souls all the same? Yeah, all the souls are surrendered to, are the servants of Krishna. But by corruption of the modes of material nature and bad association, one misidentifies oneself, and that's called the false ego. And they think that other things are more important than Krishna, like going to baseball games, football games, basketball games. They'll spend thousands of dollars doing these things. That corrupts the functioning of the soul. The soul actually becomes inactive. And what is functioning? It's the false ego in association with the modes of nature. And the soul is just there, helplessly watching, not being able to do anything. Because there's so much illusion. Just like when you're sleeping and dreaming, you can be dreaming of a tiger chasing you. And while you're sleeping, maybe someone's watching you and they say, "Tiger, tiger, tiger," and you're moving around, you're breathing heavily. Is there a tiger? Huh? There's no tiger. It's just in your dream. But you're reacting to it physically. Even though you're sleeping, you're reacting physically. You're breathing heavy. You're saying, "Tiger, tiger," But there's no tiger. But if someone wakes you up, you go, and you look around and just see the tiger. There's no tiger, right? Then you realize it was just a dream. So this whole material world is like a bad dream. It's like a bad dream. And we're reacting to it. It's called psychosomatic symptoms. What's going on in the brain affects the body. So if you have all these negative images in the brain, it affects your body. It affects your health. It affects your psychological well-being, meaning your subtle body, and it affects your relationships. It's like when a person, like I knew this one man, his wife developed panic attacks. At any given time, she would panic. And it's like very distressful to see this. And you would always try and tell us, well, there's no reason, there's nothing here, we're safe. No, I'm afraid. They said, but afraid of what? Then the door's locked, no, someone's going to come in. But is there someone coming in? No. But she's having a panic attack. It's all going on in her mind. And she's conscious, right? It's not in the sleep. It's while she's conscious. And there was nothing he could do about it, except try and convince her that there's no reason to be panicked. But it doesn't really work. The only thing that works is giving them sedatives so they go to sleep and forget about it. So we see here that the materialistic concept of life, I'm going to read this again because Prabhupada summarizes it beautifully in 2 lines. This is in the purport, the 2nd chapter, 26th verse. Yeah. Such philosophers, meaning materialistic philosophers, maintain that life symptoms take place at a certain mature condition of material combination. The modern material scientists and materialist philosophers also think similarly. According to them, the body is a combination of physical elements, and at a certain stage, the life symptoms develop by interaction of the physical and chemical elements. Now, this is the theory of Professor Turing. Turing was like one of the godfathers of modern computers. And he said, we will develop our computers in the future to the point where they will have a soul. They'll be like a human being. That's That's his idea of, I mean, this back in 1950 he predicted this. This is the idea of artificial intelligence. Right? Of course, it's nonsense. Never be able to emulate a human being. But they can do certain tasks, and maybe some tasks better than human beings or faster than human beings, but they'll never emulate a human being because it's artificial intelligence, meaning it cannot exist on its own. Just like you can buy a brand new machine. It could be a car, it could be a computer, it could be a vacuum pump, any machine. Eventually, it's going to need maintenance and repair. Is it not? Right? Even your heart is a machine, right? It can go 100 years without breaking down, but eventually it's going to break down. It's going to need repair and maintenance, right? Yeah. It's getting old, right? Yeah, right. Like it's a human being, you know. It's getting old. Yeah, of course, because it's a machine. Anything material is going to transform over time, you know, deteriorate over time. Right? So therefore, it's artificial intelligence. It will always require maintenance, right? And it cannot reproduce itself. Right? It might be able to heal a few things, but it's not going to reproduce itself, right? So this is the problem between the Swiss watchmaker and Krishna. The Swiss watchmaker can make a relatively perfect watch. Can that watch reproduce itself? Then it's not perfect. Human beings created by Krishna, he also put inherently in human beings the ability to reproduce themselves. So who's a better creator? Krishna or the Swiss watchmaker? Yeah, you see. And will artificial intelligence ever equal human intelligence? No, because it's always going to need somebody to maintain it. Now, do humans need maintenance also? Yes. But who's maintaining the human beings? Krishna. So we're dependent. We're not independent. We can't fully maintain ourselves. We can do it for some short period of time, but eventually we also break down. So we also need maintenance. And we can't produce the sun, the rain, the earth, the water, all these things. We can't produce all this, the wind. We can't move, and we can't distill seawater and move it thousands of miles and make it fall down as rain or snow. We can't do that. We can do it in a very limited way, very limited, but not enough to maintain life on the Earth planet. On the other hand, we can destroy the Earth, not the whole thing, but we can destroy parts of it by mismanagement. Okay? Of what? Oh, Cape Town in South Africa, yeah. Yeah. Well, they'll have to move out eventually. Okay, so let's go back to 18th chapter, 20th verse. A person who sees one spirit soul in every living being, whether a demigod, human being, animal, bird, beast, aquatic, or plant, possesses knowledge in the mode of goodness. In other words, they see that there's a soul in this body. The scientists don't see that there's a soul. They just see physical elements and chemicals that combine. And they try to make an artificial soul, just like they try to make artificial intelligence through material combination, but it doesn't work. In all living entities, one spirit soul is there, although they have different bodies in terms of their previous work. As described in the 7th chapter, the manifestation of the living force in every body is due to the superior nature of the Supreme Lord. Thus, to see that one superior nature, that living force, in every body is to see in the mode of goodness. That living energy is imperishable, although the bodies are perishable. Differences are perceived in terms of the body because there are many forms of material existence and conditional life. The living force appears to be divided. Such impersonal knowledge is an aspect of self-realization. So, what does it mean by such impersonal knowledge is an aspect of self-realization? It means that people in the mode of goodness can be impersonalists. What does the impersonalist say? The impersonalist says that there's only one soul, Brahman. And all the individuality you see, it's actually illusion. So, that is better than saying, oh, everything is just made of chemical combination. So you see, even Sankaracharya, by establishing the impersonalist Mayavada philosophy, it's better than the Buddhist philosophy, which is totally materialistic. It's better than it. But it's not the best. Okay, Yamuna, can you concentrate? It's not the best. It's incomplete. It's only partial spiritual knowledge. But it has another fault that Sankaracharya did not do. His students did it, his disciples did it. They say that there's nothing beyond Brahman. That's vicious. That's precluding any possibility of advancing. We're going to come to that in a minute. Okay, so this is point one. Then, verse number 23, 1823 says, that action which is regulated. So what we're doing now is going over the mode of goodness as it pertains to knowledge. So the first one was seeing one soul, right, in all living entities. And now duty. And this is verse 23, or that action which is regulated and which is performed without attachment, without love or hatred, and without desire for fruitive results, is said to be in the mode of goodness. And in the purport, Prabhupada explains, regulated occupational duties as prescribed in the scriptures in terms of the different orders and divisions of society, performed without attachment or proprietary rights, and therefore without any love or hatred, and performed in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of the Supreme, without self-satisfaction and self-gratification, are called actions in the mode of goodness. Now, yesterday someone came up to me and said, Prabhuji, you got a new farm. I said, yeah, well, we haven't moved in yet, but I'm going to give you $100,000. I said, really? He said, how are you going to do that? I said, well, I'm going to mortgage the property that I own and give you the money. But only on the condition that you put my name on the deed of trust. I said, well, absolutely not. I said, my name is not on any deed of trust of temple property. I said, so keep your $100,000. I don't want it. I said, not that I don't want it. Krishna doesn't want it because it's not a real donation, right? You see, so here it says, so his action is an action in the mode of passion. It was not an action in the mode of goodness. It was definitely not transcendental goodness, you see. You see how, if you study Bhagavad Gita, then you can understand human nature. Here's a guy, he said, I'm going to give you $100,000. You know, he thought I would grab it right away. You know, but it's not a real donation. See? It's not, it has nothing to do, yes. Yamunacharya. Yes. Okay, we have a rule now. Instead of saying or you say Hare Krishna. Well, there was once a person that came up to a guru. He said, "Guruji, I'm going to give you $500." The guru said, "Oh, very good." He said, "But let me ask you a question." He said, "Do you like money?" He said, "Yes." "Do you want to make more money?" He said, "Yes." "Then keep your $500. And that's basically what I told this person yesterday. I said, I didn't use those exact words, but I told them that, oh, you need your $100,000 because that's for your retirement. So you don't want to give that to the temple. So I didn't tell him, keep your nonsense money, you piece of fool. You know, I didn't say that. I didn't try and insult him. I explained to him, look, you need that money because it's for your retirement. You're going to mortgage the house that you own? No, you don't want to do that. You should always keep that money. So he understood, and he said, okay. He thought I was going to, say, oh, yes, definitely, yeah. No, that's not a donation. That's the whole point. A donation, there's no quid pro quo. Write this down. Quid pro quo. Q-U-I-D-P-R-O-Q-U-O. Do you know what a quid pro quo is? No, you give something, but you get something in return. Right. So the Krishna consciousness is not a quid pro quo in a material sense. That you give a donation and you get something back. Right. It's one way. You give the donation only for the pleasure of Krishna. You're not expecting anything back. That's a real donation. When there's getting something back, it's not a donation. Like, for example, someone will say, well, Prabhu, I'll give you $25,000 and you can match it because I work in Microsoft. But when you get the $25,000, give my money back to me under the table. The people actually have said that to us, right? And we told them, no, that's not a donation. Not only is it not a donation, it's also illegal what you're asking us to do. Basically, what is it? It's money laundering. He gives a donation. He can reduce his taxes with the donation, but he wants the money back under the table, so no one knows about it. It's complete nonsense. The people actually want to do those things. They want to use the temple to launder their money. Okay. So regulated occupational duties as prescribed in the scriptures in terms of the different orders and divisions of society, performed without attachment or proprietary rights, and therefore without any love or hatred, and performed in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of the Supreme, without self-satisfaction and self-gratification, are called actions in the mode of goodness. Now, this is the definition of the behavior of an aspiring devotee. This is the way the devotee will act, right? They have no agenda for self-satisfaction or self-gratification, and they are without love or hatred, and they're regulated. They don't ask for any proprietary rights, and they're following scriptural instructions of how to do things and taking the advice of bona fide teachers. That's action in the mode of goodness. Okay. And then now let's take a look at verse 26, 1826. And this verse says, so that was action, right? Now comes, or work, now comes duty. One who performs his duty without association with the modes of material nature, without false ego, with great determination and enthusiasm, and without wavering in success or failure, is said to be a worker in the mode of goodness. This is the way we should perform our duty, whether it's the duty of marriage, whether it's the duty of friendship, whether it's the duty of being a devotee, whether it's the duty of being a Kshatriya or Vaishya or Sudra or whatever. It should be done like this. Duty should be performed like this, without association with the modes of material nature, in other words, free of the influence of goodness, passion, or ignorance, without false ego, with great determination and enthusiasm, and without wavering in success or failure, is said to be a worker in the mode of goodness. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. A person in Krishna consciousness is always transcendental to the material modes of nature. He has no expectations for the result of the work entrusted to him, because he is above false ego and pride. Still, he is always enthusiastic till the completion of such work. He does not worry about the distress undertaken. He is always enthusiastic. He does not care for success or failure. He is equal in both distress and happiness. Such a worker is situated in the mode of goodness. Now, actually what's being described here, one second, if we look in chapter 14, it's all about the modes of material nature, right? So that's the modes of material nature. But when he gets to chapter 18, he's beginning to explain transcendental goodness, right? Krishna is explaining transcendental goodness, not the ordinary mode of goodness. Yes, here in the 18th chapter, he's summarizing what's gone before in the 14th chapter. Just to give you an example, it says, in 14.6, it says, O Arjuna, the mode of goodness, being purer than others, is illuminating, and it frees one from sinful reactions. Those situated in the mode of goodness become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. So, it doesn't mention being conditioned in 1826. It mentions it in 14.6. That's goodness, that's mode of goodness in material nature, still under the influence of something, such as the desire to become happy. So one is conditioned by sense of happiness and knowledge, by acting in the mode of goodness. So one is still conditioned. Whereas here in 1826, he's talking about transcendental goodness. Okay. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, a person in Krishna consciousness is always transcendental to the modes of nature. He has no expectations for the result of the work entrusted to him, because he is above false ego and pride. Still, he's always enthusiastic till the completion of such work. He does not worry about the distress undertaken. He is always enthusiastic. He does not care for success or failure. He is equal in both distress and happiness. Such a worker is situated in the mode of goodness. This is transcendental goodness now. And now, let's take a look at verse number 30. Okay, what did you want to say? Yeah? Yeah, but now he's talking about transcendental goodness. Whereas in 14.6, he's talking about the conditioned mode of goodness. One becomes conditioned by the sense of happiness and knowledge. So they remain in the material world of conditioning, but it's a higher form of conditioning. Instead of being conditioned by passion and lust, they're conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge, but it's not complete. Whereas in 1826, he's talking about transcendental goodness, Krishna consciousness. Okay. Okay, and now we're looking at verse 30, where it says, now this is explaining understanding. So we've discussed mode of goodness in knowledge, in work, duty, and now understanding. Pavritimcha nivritimcha. O son of Prita, that understanding by which one knows what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, what is to be feared and what is not to be feared, what is binding and what is liberating, is in the mode of goodness. And purport. Performing actions in terms of the directions of the scriptures is called pavriti, or executing actions that deserve to be performed. And actions which are not so directed are not to be performed. One who does not know the scriptural directions becomes entangled in the actions and reactions of work, understanding which discriminates by intelligence is situated in the mode of goodness. So that understanding which discriminates on the basis of intelligence. Intelligence is the discerning power of understanding what is good and what is not good, based on scriptural evidence, not based on feel good or feel bad. The mind makes those decisions. This is good, based on sense gratification. And this is bad, based on a lack of sense gratification. But spiritual intelligence differentiates on, this is good because it's pleasing to Krishna. And this is bad because it has no connection to Krishna. You see? So, again, he's talking about transcendental goodness here. Understanding which discriminates by intelligence, spiritual intelligence, is situated in the mode of goodness. So a devotee can understand what should be done and what should not be done. What should be feared and what should not be feared. Like, for example, one should fear the influence of Maya. Why? Because it can take you away from Krishna. One should not fear a difficult situation because one's not attached to success or failure. They're attached to regulated service. Yes. Wait a minute. We said, yeah, okay. No. Say Hare Krishna. Principles of universal spirituality. Yeah, but ultimately, it's what I said. It's samsiddhim haritoshanam. The highest perfection of human life is to please Lord Krishna or Lord Hari. Samsiddhim means perfection of haritoshanam, pleasing Lord Hari or Krishna. That's the highest perfection of human life. Does that answer your question? So you have to make decisions that are pleasing to Krishna. That's called spiritual intelligence. And if you make decisions based on pleasing one's sense gratification, that's called material life. Okay? Now, we'll go to verse 36, which is about determination. Your steadfastness in devotional service, your determination to continue in Krishna consciousness. But that determination, wait a minute, I'm sorry. 35, yes, 35. One second. Okay. But that determination, which cannot go beyond, I'm sorry, it's not 35. Yeah, 33. Okay, we already discussed that. I'm sorry, we already discussed that. The next one is 36. I'm sorry. The next one is 36. Jai Shishi Gornitai.
also repeat after her. Go stand behind Yamuna and you should repeat loudly, everybody.
I don't do things.
I always go off cheering and repeat that.
Yeah. Are you?
Yeah. I woke up at 7 today.
So repeat after
I woke up at 5:15. 5:08.
Okay, they will repeat after you nicely. Loudly. Okay, let's have a
Why is it go? Yeah.
and bump Gokul and kick her.
Yeah, sure. We'd be honored to.
Like, that was a fight.
But when you have to do all this thing and she's sleeping, so come home early and beat her nicely.
Yeah.
You want one? Oh, I got the one with only 2.
Yashomati Nandana Vrajavara Nagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Yashomati Nandana Vrajavara Nagara Gokula Yashomati Nandana Brajabara Nagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Brajabara Nagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Gopi Parana Dhana Madhana Manohara Madhana Kaliya Dhamana Vidana Amala Harinam Amiya Vilasa Amala Harinam Amiya Vilasa Vipima Purandhara Navina Nagara Bora Bhamsi Bhadana Suvasa Brajajana Palana Surakura Nasana Brajajana Palana Surakura Nasana Nanda Godhamara Koala Nanda Godhamara Koala Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Sundarananda Gopala Sundarananda गोपीपसनहरा यमुना तटचरा गोपीपसनहरा रासरसिका कृपामया रासरसिका कृपामया श्रीराधावल्लभ वृन्दावननाथ भरा श्रीराधावल्लभ वृन्दावननाथ भरा भक्ति विनोदाचार्य भक्ति विनोदाचार्य यशोमती नंदना ब्रजवरनागर गोकुल रंजन गाना यशोमती नंदना ब्रजवरनागर गोकुल रंजन गाना गोपी परनधना मदना मनोहरा गोपी परनधना मदना मनोहरा कालिया धमन विधाना हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय जगन्नाथ जय जगन्नाथ जय सुभद्रा जय सीताराम जय लक्ष्मण हनुमान Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Prabhupada.
Arush, next week you are going to sing the art.
Haribol.
Okay, be prepared yourself. Then you have to do it twice.
Whenever you try and move this, you'll break it eventually. Sit here. Retighten it. If you just break it, they cost you like $100. Loosen this thing first to move the long stick, and then you loosen this, extend this, or make it short. If you just force it, okay, so we're on verse. No, it's actually 36. 37. Work. Duty, understanding, nation, happiness. In the pursuit of self-realization, one has to follow many rules and regulations to control the mind and the senses, and to concentrate the mind. Notice self as a small s. When S is a capital, who does it refer to? Paramatma. And when S is a small s, it's referring to the individual jiva. these three modes associated with the material body, he or she can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. You can enjoy nectar even in... I thought you said you fixed the computer. You said you fixed the what? It's here? Oh, how come it's not there? 1420. So, this is the way you enjoy life, by tasting nectar. Just like a pure mango lassi. Tastes like nectar. Milk and mango. When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes with his passion and ignorance associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. And Prabhupada explains in the purport how one can stay in the transcendental position, even in this body, in full Krishna consciousness, is explained in this verse. The Sanskrit word dehi means embodied, although one is within this material body. By his advancement in spiritual knowledge, he can be free from the influence of the modes of nature. He can enjoy the happiness of spiritual life, even in this body, because after leaving this body, he is certainly going to the spiritual sky. But even in this body, he can enjoy spiritual happiness. In other words, devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the sign of liberation from material entanglement. And this will be explained in the 18th chapter, which we are reading now. When one is freed from the influence of the modes of material nature, he enters into devotional service. So how many times did he say, even in this body? How many times? Wrong. You want to count again? Well, it says, even in this body, it says that, oh yeah, within this material body, you can count that one. That makes 4. Yeah. Okay, so he's repeating it 3, 4 times. What does that mean? Yes. Extremely important. He actually repeated it 4 times. 3 times is very, very important. 4 times means extremely important. In other words, you can taste transcendental nectar even in this body. You can be liberated from the influence of the modes of material nature even in this body. Even though the body is material, you can free it completely. This is a big, big thing. And you can taste transcendental nectar, enjoy nectar. And you become free of birth, death, old age, and disease. This is a big message here. We should be very, very, very excited to hear this. In fact, we should have a festival because we heard this. This is real good news. Right? It's not fake news, it's good news. Right? Yes, Mayapur, this has to be a question, Mayapur. And if you start with you have to say Hare Krishna. Yes. No, 20. So now we're continuing. The mode of goodness is favorable for beginning the development of knowledge, with the possibility of progressively evolving spiritually if one is guided by bona fide spiritual masters. This is something I've written. Yet, Lord Krishna says that one must rise above the influence of all three modes, including the mode of goodness, in order to understand the Lord. Because the Lord is above all influence of the modes of material nature. In other words, unless you come to the platform where the Lord functions, you can't understand him. And Krishna is transcendental to the modes of material nature. So we have to rise up to that platform in order to understand Krishna. Otherwise, if we're still influenced by the modes of material nature, we will not properly understand. We'll understand something in the mode of goodness, material mode of goodness. You understand nothing in the material mode of passion and ignorance. Absolutely zero. Even if you're expert in reciting the Vedas, you still understand nothing. Don't keep your mouth open like that. A fly will go in your mouth. He was like, don't keep your mouth open like that. Okay. So, one must come to the same nature of the Lord, transcendental to the three modes, to understand him correctly. So what is the nature? What does material nature mean? The word for nature, not nature like trees and things. Nature means how you do things, how you eat, how you sleep, how you think, how you speak. That's called swabhava, nature of a person. So it says, one must come to the same nature of the Lord, transcendental to the three modes, to understand him correctly. It is not possible for one tainted by the modes of nature to properly understand the Lord. So what is the nature of influence in the mode of ignorance? And what's the nature of one influenced by the mode of passion? And what is the nature of one influenced by the mode of goodness? Well, we read that today, we studied that today. 1412 explains the influence of the mode of passion. When there's an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms are great material attachments, fruitive activities, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desires and hankering. And then the mode of ignorance is characterized by darkness, laziness, craziness, and illusion. So you enter into the world of the lazies and crazies by ignorance. Don't keep your mouth open. And the mode of goodness is characterized by regulated activity and enthusiasm, not being affected by success or failure, performing activities without material attachment, simply for the pleasure of the Lord, and without attachment to the results of the work. One offers everything to Krishna. And being able to understand the difference between right and wrong based on scriptural evidence. And knowing what activities liberate you and what activities entangle you. And having unbreakable determination. And by following the regulative principles of Krishna consciousness and controlling the mind, the senses, and one's life with determination, acting out of duty without the influence of the modes of material nature, without false ego, and with great enthusiasm, and not wavering in success or failure. So this is the nature of the mode of goodness. So now we just heard the nature of the mode of goodness, nature of the mode of passion, nature of the mode of ignorance, right? So to understand Krishna, one must rise above these modes, because that's the level on which Krishna is acting, transcendental to the modes of material nature. Unless we get up to that level, we'll never really fully understand the Lord. With proper guidance of Siksha Diksha gurus, one can transcend the mode of goodness and come to the spiritual level known as pure goodness, or Visuddha Sattva. The difference between goodness and pure goodness is understood when one gives up all material desires and replaces them with pure desires to please Krishna without any self-interest. Samsiddhim haritoshanam, the highest perfection of life is to please Lord Hari. All endeavors are undertaken without attachment to material goals such as personal wealth, power, knowledge, fame, material self-improvement, or renunciation, based on the bodily conception of life. One should not renounce something that can be used in the service of Krishna. One learns to use everything in the Lord's service under the guidance of the spiritual masters, both instructing and initiating gurus. Lord Krishna says, when the embodied being is able to transcend these modes. Are you following this on the board? Are you following the text that I'm reading on the board? Then what's the use of putting it on the board then? It's so people can follow it. When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he or she can become free from birth, death, old age, and disease, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. Devotional service in Krishna consciousness is effective liberation from material entanglement. When one is freed from the influence of the modes of material nature, he enters into the devotional service and begins the path to immortality. Unalloyed devotional service for the Lord is the surest way to become free from the oppressive cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. Bhakti, devotion to Krishna, is always joyfully performed. By continual service for Krishna, one is blessed with self-realization, namely understanding and acting in one's eternal relationship with the Lord. One is no longer attracted by temporary material pleasures and pursuits due to being completely satisfied by constant engagement in the Lord's service. This amazing state of mind is explained by Lord Krishna. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasavajam rasapyasya param dristva nivartate. Bhagavad Gita 259. 259, not page 259, but Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, 59th verse. Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements, by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. Right? Srila Prabhupada explains. Now let's look at the purport. Unless one is transcendentally situated, it is not possible to cease from sense enjoyment. So again, transcendentally situated means above the influence of the modes of material nature. Always being engaged in devotional service. Unless you are transcendently situated, you can't give up sense gratification. You can't give up Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Dumbo, and all the others. Right? The process of restriction from sense enjoyment by rules and regulations is something like restricting a diseased person from certain types of eatables or edibles. The sick person, however, neither likes such restrictions nor loses his taste for edibles. Similarly, sense restriction by some spiritual process like Astanga Yoga in the matter of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, and dhyana, and samadhi, etc., is recommended for less intelligent persons who have no better knowledge, but one who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord Krishna in the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness no longer has a taste for dead material things. Therefore, restrictions are there for the less intelligent neophytes in the spiritual advancement of life. But such restrictions are only good until one actually has a taste for Krishna consciousness. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. Very important purport. Unless you get the taste for Krishna. Just like some people have a taste for doing nonsense, even though they're chanting Hare Krishna. Therefore, they don't have a taste to sit down patiently and hear Krishna Katha. They get fidgety, They got to move around, or they got to go outside, or they have to go like this and whisper something and laugh, like Yamuna is doing right now. They can't sit still and listen carefully and remember and think about it the rest of the day. They're always fidgeting. They're what you call a jitterbug. You know what a jitterbug is? Someone who can't sit still. You've got to do something. And be playing with a pencil, or going like this with paper, opening and closing the book, or going like that. They can't sit still. They can't listen. They can't focus the mind. When it's doing nonsense, they're focused on nonsense. But when it's trying to learn something about Krishna, they're jitterbugging on it. Like that, they can't focus. Right? So, but when you develop a taste for Krishna consciousness, then you lose your jitterbug nature, and you start listening carefully and like soaking it up like a sponge. And you're anxious to hear more and more. You don't want it to stop because it's so good. Because it's giving direct perception of your relationship to Krishna, to yourself and to Krishna. Once the devotee understands the difference between the body, which is made of matter, always subject to change, and the soul, the real person who exists eternally, one begins to lose attraction to temporary pursuits and pleasures. Once you understand the difference between the body and the soul, then you begin to lose your attraction to jitterbug activity, nonsense activity, and temporary pursuits and pleasures. This is the turning point in one's life from the illusory pursuit of material happiness to dedication to the blissful service of Lord Krishna. This is the turning point. The advantages of this dramatic change of consciousness are immeasurable because one enters into the fourth dimension. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada has written, Arjuna has addressed Lord Krishna as Govinda because Krishna is the object of all pleasures for cows and the senses. Are we there? Is that okay? No, anyway. By using this significant word, Arjuna indicates that Krishna should understand what will satisfy Arjuna's senses. It's not Dumbo, Donald Duck, or Mickey Mouse. It's Govinda will satisfy Arjuna's senses and our senses. But Govinda is not meant for satisfying our senses. If we try to satisfy the senses of Govinda, however, then automatically our own senses are satisfied. So if you try and satisfy your own senses, you'll never be satisfied. If you try and satisfy Govinda's senses, then your senses will be satisfied. You understand? If you try and satisfy Donald Duck, will your senses be satisfied? No, you'll never be satisfied. You always want more Donald Duck, and eventually you get sick of Donald Duck. Right? So you'll never be satisfied. But if you try and satisfy Krishna or Govinda, then your senses will be satisfied. Because why? Your senses belong to Krishna. He's the one who gave you the senses. They belong to him. He's called Hrishikesha, Hrishikena Hrishikesha. He's the owner of the senses. Right? So they should only be used in Krishna's service. Then you become satisfied. Arjuna has addressed Lord Krishna. Okay, if we try to satisfy the senses of Govinda, however, then automatically our own senses are satisfied. Materially, everyone wants to satisfy his senses, meaning his own senses. And he wants God to be the order supplier for such satisfaction. Lord Krishna will satisfy the senses of living entities as much as they deserve, but not to the extent that they may covet or desire. But when one takes the opposite way, what's the opposite way? Who can explain what the opposite way is? Yes, Sanskrit. Pleasing the senses of Krishna. Instead of what? Yeah, instead of Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, and Dumbo, so you become dumbbell, you try and please Govinda, Krishna, Murari, Nandasutta, Yasoda Nandana. You try and please Krishna, then your senses will be completely satisfied. When one tries to satisfy the senses of Govinda without desiring to satisfy one's own senses, then by the grace of Govinda, all desires of the living entity are satisfied. So, as long as we have all desires for material sense gratification, we're never satisfied. As soon as we replace all those nonsense desires with the desire to please Krishna, there's no limit to our satisfaction. See? It's just like if you plug your electric, let's say, machine into an electric plug that is dead, will the machine work? No. So that's like plugging into personal sense gratification. It doesn't work. And the senses will never be completely satisfied. You always remain dissatisfied. But if you plug your machine into a plug that's live, that has electricity in it, will the machine work? Yes. Right? So when you plug in to pleasing Krishna's senses, then your senses are satisfied. If you plug in to Mickey Mouse, Dumbo, and Donald Duck, will your senses be satisfied? No. There'll be a little bit of satisfaction, but it's never complete. And you keep going back to Dumbo, Donald Duck, and Mickey Mouse. And eventually you get disgusted with him. You say, I'm sick and tired of him. Now I want something else. Okay. All the spiritual desires of the devotee to please Krishna are satisfied because the devotee only endeavors to please the Lord without any selfish motive. All the problems of life are caused by the desire of the living entities to dominate, control, enjoy the material nature and people. This desire to dominate, just like Jeff Bezos, right? Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, and Kim Jong-un. And all these people, they want to dominate others and dominate material nature and control and then enjoy. This causes unending competition due to the boundless lust of material advancement of life. People have unending lust. Can you stop a fire by pouring gasoline on it? Right. So, can you stop lust by increasing lusty behavior? No, you make it worse. Can you stop an inch by scratching it? An itch, I-T-C-H. What happens when you scratch an itch? Huh? It itches more. How do you stop an itch? Huh? By scratching it? By not scratching it, just tolerating it, and you'll see it'll go away. But if you keep, no, it gets worse and worse. You have to tolerate it, and it'll go away. It'll itch hard, but then if you just tolerate it, you see, after some time it goes away. But if you keep itching it, it doesn't go away. The same thing, lust. Feeding lust with lusty behavior doesn't make it go away. It just makes it worse. It's like pouring more gasoline on the fire. It just makes the fire worse. Ultimately, living entities are trying to compete with Krishna. What does that mean? Compete with Krishna. They're trying to be better than Krishna. Right? Can you become better than Krishna? No, it's hopeless. You can never compete with Krishna. Therefore, don't try and compete with Krishna. Try to cooperate with Krishna. Ultimately, living entities are trying to compete with Krishna by usurping some part of Krishna's material creation for their selfish interests, rather than dedicate everything to the service of the Lord. Who can explain this statement? Let me read it again. Ultimately, living entities are trying to compete with Krishna by usurping some part of Krishna's material creation for their selfish interests, rather than dedicate everything to the service of the Lord. What does this mean? Who wants to explain? Did you raise your hand, Ria? Or you were just stretching? Like that? Okay. Anybody want to raise their... Yamuna is stretching, or she wants to answer the question? You want me to read it again? Ultimately, the living entities are trying to compete with Krishna by usurping some part of Krishna's material creation for their selfish interests, rather than dedicate everything to the service of the Lord. You know what usurp means? It means to forcibly take it away from someone else. So, anyone want to venture an explanation of this sentence? Yes. They don't have the right to do it because it belongs to Krishna, right? Okay, but they're trying to do that instead of doing what? Instead of dedicating everything, instead of usurping, they should dedicate. They should use it only for the pleasure of Krishna. We don't say renounce. The Mayavadis say you should renounce it. Don't touch it. That's wrong also. You can't renounce something that doesn't belong to you. You can't be attached to something that doesn't belong to you. But you can use it for Krishna because it belongs to him. So we're not attached, we're not renounced. We're dedicated. We dedicate everything to Krishna's service. Okay, very good. Once this sublime fact is understood by the devotee, wonderful things begin to happen, and the devotee experiences boundless happiness. Once you understand this, then instead of trying to compete with Krishna by usurping something material or some part of the material creation for yourself, you should dedicate everything. And if you do that, then wonderful things happen. And you experience unending happiness. Because all your desires for pleasing Krishna will be satisfied. It's an unending. You enter the fourth dimension. Everything is unending. To conclude, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada elucidates the path to happiness by the cultivation of the mode of goodness, compared to the dead end of despair and misery by following the modes of passion and ignorance. Can anyone explain what this means? I'll read it again. To conclude, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada elucidates. You know what elucidates means? Means makes it understandable. All right? Makes understandable the path to happiness by the cultivation of the mode of goodness, compared to the dead end of despair and misery by following the modes of passion and ignorance. Yes? Shrestha. Yeah. Dead end of what? Of what? Modes of passion and ignorance.
Passion and ignorance.
Right? So the mode of goodness, at least you can learn something in the mode of goodness. And if you transform the mode of goodness, the transcendental goodness, then you can understand everything, basically. Right. So, Prabhupada quotes the verse 14:17. 14:17. Bhagavad Gita, 14th chapter, 17th verse. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. And from the mode of ignorance, foolishness develops. Madness and illusion. So from the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. And from the mode of ignorance, develop foolishness, madness, and illusion. Okay? So, we must come to the mode of goodness. To be a real student, you have to be in the mode of goodness. So, do you think that the other students in your classes, in school, material school, as we say, are they in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance? Huh? Yes, Sidhu. Ignorance, okay. Anybody else? Yes, Yamuna. Okay, anybody else? Yes? Okay, and Advait? Okay. So are they real students then? No. And they can't be students of spiritual knowledge because they won't learn anything. They're blocked by the mode of passion and ignorance. Namaste Saraswati Devi. Yeah. Yeah. How is that? Why would they only focus on everybody's in the mode of ignorance and passion? The idea is then you will be in ignorance and passion yourself. But the whole idea is to be in the mode of goodness by learning about Krishna. So if you avoid learning anything about Krishna, and you only learn about frogs and insects and asteroids and dinosaurs. Yeah. They love to teach you about dinosaurs. As if you're ever going to see a dinosaur in your life. What good is it to know about dinosaurs? You're never going to see one anyway, hopefully. Unless you go to see the movie Jurassic Park, which is only a movie. So, I mean, if that's all you learn about, then, you become attracted. By the way, all that is, it begins like nectar and ends up like poison, right? You get, you'll grow out of dinosaurs, and then you start talking about BMWs and Teslas, right? And then you'll grow out of that, and you start talking about rocket ships that go to the moon, Then when you give up on that, you talk about, smoking marijuana and forgetting about all those things. Then when you forget about that, then you'll think, oh, well, it's good that, I put some piercings in my tongue and my nose and my ear, and I get some horns up here by mutilating my body, and get tattooed all over, And then when you get bored about that, you get a skateboard and have an accident and die. You know. You know. Yeah. So you see, it's a dead end. The mode of passion and ignorance, a dead end. But the mode of goodness is, at least you can develop some knowledge. And if you come to transcendental goodness, then you develop wonderful knowledge. Since the present civilization is not very congenial to the living entities, Krishna consciousness is recommended. Through Krishna consciousness, society will develop the mode of goodness. When the mode of goodness is developed, people will see things as they are. In the mode of ignorance, people are just like animals and cannot see things clearly. In the mode of ignorance, for example, they do not see that by killing one animal, they are taking the chance of being killed by the same animal in the next life. Because people have no education in actual knowledge, they become irresponsible. To stop this irresponsibility, education for developing the mode of goodness of the people in general must be there. When they are actually educated in the mode of goodness, they will become sober. I said this is the purport to 1417. You can follow it. When they are actually educated in the mode of goodness, they will become sober, in full knowledge of things as they are. Then people will be happy and prosperous. Even if the majority of people aren't happy and prosperous, if a certain percentage of the population develops Krishna consciousness and becomes situated in a mode of goodness, then there's a possibility for peace and prosperity all over the world. Well, here's something we could tell President Trump. Let me read that again, and somebody can explain. Yeah. When people are actually educated in the mode of goodness, they will become sober, in full knowledge of things as they are. Then people will be happy and prosperous. Even if the majority of the people are not happy and prosperous, if a certain percentage of the population develops Krishna consciousness and becomes situated in the mode of goodness, then there is the possibility for peace and prosperity all over the world. What does this mean? Shall I read it again? Oh, okay. 14, verse number 17. Okay. Mayapur Das. What does this mean?
So it means like instead of you like
No, when you say you say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
You have to say Hare Krishna again. Go ahead.
Instead of you giving like the poor people like Hare Krishna bars and like.
Instead of giving them what? Poor people what?
Bars and like houses.
Oh, bars? Did you say bar? Like a B-A-R? Yeah.
And
where they drink liquor,
yeah,
right?
and all these like bad places.
Yes.
Like you're just gonna still. There's gonna still be like all these poor people all around the world, but like if you like just stop that for some time, then like people they'll have peace, and instead of having gambling, they'll be like, yay, now we can play. And after, instead of like having like these theories,
what do you
like,
say?
it's not theories of like they have the moon is gonna Earth is gonna explode in like 2 more days, so now we need to get out of work. But like if you just if
Hare Krishna. Yeah, if you become Krishna conscious, then there'll be peace.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Krishna. Two. Wait. Get your microphone. Okay.
These like stuff, they're like deviating us from the path of Krishna consciousness.
Hare Krishna.
What? What did I say? Did I say again?
Yes. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Go ahead, finish your thought. It's good. We're all chanting Hare Krishna. Keep going. Okay, anybody else want to say something? Let me read the sentence again.
Basically, these stuff are deviating us from being in the mode of goodness. That's what he's saying.
What is deviating? Donald Duck? Or what's deviating?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Yes, Advait.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So when people are actually educated in the mode of goodness, they become like
Regulated.
they become regular in their habits and they follow all the four universal principles:
Of
austerity,
spiritual.
mercy, cleanliness, and truthfulness.
Yeah. And what happens? What happens if just a certain percentage of society becomes situated in the mode of goodness? What will happen? Yes, go ahead.
And that percentage of society will get a higher birth.
No. They'll be able to influence the whole society to live in peace and prosperity. The whole society. You just need like 10, 15% of the population to be seriously situated in the mode of goodness. It could change the whole society. Like, for example, during the Revolutionary War in America, right, in colonial times, there were only 10 or 15% of the population at that time that supported the war. That's all. In the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, hardly 10%, not even 10%, maybe only 5% were communists. Is that right? Amongst the Bolsheviks. And they took over the whole country. Now, we're not interested in revolutionary wars, but I'm just saying, just, you know, if there was just 10% of the population who was really situated in the mode of goodness, it would change the whole society. Yes.
Why are you guys so happy? What's the occasion? And why are you giving us flowers? So then they also understand, okay, there is a way to be happiness and peace, and they readily take Bhagavad Gita and they probably would start reading, like, and then they can get that peace.
That's why many people, many devotees should come out on Sankirtan. The more devotees there are, the more happy and blissful they are, the more effect it has on the general population. If there's only 8 people out there, they don't take it seriously. But they see 100 people and they say, wait a minute, something's going on here. They were only 8 before, now they're 100. And then the next time they see 200, and the next time they see 400, and the next time they see 1,000, then they say, this is serious. Maybe I should find out what's going on.
So when we go to Pike Lake, Prabhuji, once a year, when 300, 400 devotees are there, whomsoever we talk, they come and they take books. They say, we want to know, we want prasad, we want to know who you are, where you are, we want to really understand, because we also want to be happy. And another point is, like Srila Prabhupada came, he was probably very few at that time, but he spread peace and happiness all across all the countries by just being here.
Well, he organized major festivals like Rath Yatra. And people took notice. The first big Rath Yatra in San Francisco in 1973, there were over 10,000 people came.
And like over in Seattle, we have one farm when people learn about the farm and cows. Like you were giving a program in one home, and they said, oh, there is a milk. We have been searching whole life for that milk. And then we go to Auburn. There are a lot of people who can't come, even temple devotees. And now they're able to come in Sudo district. So when we are far and outreaching, even if there are 8 people in Sankirtan or even 5 people are interested, still it makes a lot of difference.
Well, yeah, but what we want is to have hundreds of people on Sankirtan, hundreds. That makes a major difference. We want to make a major difference, not just a little difference. Yes, Advait. Advait Prabhu.
So like, once my teacher was asking me to do this project on like who's your hero. So
Who's what?
Who's your hero?
Who is your hero in life? Yes.
So you know who I chose?
Srila Prabhupada.
No, I chose Harivilas Prabhu.
Who?
I chose Harivilas Prabhu because
Me?
yeah. And my teacher really liked my teacher really liked my project because she thought that you were like really kind of helping the cows in the farm instead of sending them to slaughterhouses. That was really appreciated.
We want all the kids to grow up to be good persons. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Otherwise, if the world is devoted, we're going to end now. Otherwise, if the world is devoted to the modes of passion and ignorance, there can be no peace or prosperity. In the mode of passion, people become greedy, and their hankering for sense gratification has no limit. One can see that even if one has enough money and adequate arrangements for sense gratification, there's neither happiness nor peace of mind. That is not possible because one is situated in the mode of passion. If one wants happiness at all, his money will not help him. He has to elevate himself to the mode of goodness by practicing Krishna consciousness. When one is engaged in the mode of passion, not only is he mentally unhappy, but his profession and occupation are also very troublesome. He has to devise so many plans and schemes to acquire enough money to maintain his status quo. This is all miserable. In the mode of ignorance, people become mad, meaning they become crazy. Being distressed by their circumstances, they take shelter of intoxication, and thus they sink further into ignorance. Their future in life is very dark. So, purport to 14:17. Okay, we'll stop right there. Yes, Mayapur? Hare Krishna!
So you said one class that
Hare Krishna. This is the new Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Russian gambling, like you need to shoot yourself, and if you survive,
It's Russian roulette. It's
Yeah.
called, you get a gun, and it has six, it should have 6 bullets, but they only put 1 bullet. And then they spin it, right? So you don't know. So Russian roulette is, you pull the trigger, and if you don't die, then the next person has to do it, right? So they usually play between 2 people.
so
See.
like,
Yeah, it's called Russian roulette.
so you're basically like
Hare Krishna.
you're killing people to get like a little bit of sense
Of pleasure, yeah. It's a type of gambling. Of course, the person who loses is dead. And the person who wins, they win everything the other person has. Is this Russian roulette, Prabhu? Yeah. Do they play this game in Russia? No. Only the crazy people play the game. Yeah. Okay, we'll stop right there. There's a lot more, but we'll continue tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Request for everyone to be on time, 7:30, and then tomorrow morning is Kids Mangalarti. So please come.
Hari Bol. And this afternoon is Harinam Sankirtan in the rain, like last week. And we had a great